So we all know that saying, food is medicine. But what kind of food is the best medicine? Well, my friend and YouTuber Noah Craig has found wild success treating his autoimmune disease, CIDP, with the vegan diet. But will going vegan really help you? I sat down with him to ask him every little thing good, bad, and ugly about veganism. So here we go. So Craig, you've dealt with a crippling condition, CIDP, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. Said that right. For most of your life, it's an autoimmune disease that attacks your nervous system, much like MS. However, you've stumbled upon this crazy medieval magic called the vegan diet. Yeah. And it kind of changed your life. So I wanted to get this going and basically ask you, what difference has going vegan made in your life that you don't think could have happened otherwise?
I think I definitely recovered faster, and I recovered more than I would have if I had not gone vegan. Like my neurologist even said, like the last time she saw me, she was like, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because I didn't expect you to make the recovery you made. I didn't expect to make it as quickly as you have. My whole life would have been completely different. It just has given me a lot of autonomy and freedom because I'm able to do daily chores by myself. I'm able to go travel if I want to travel, because before I was told that I would be on medication for the rest of my life. And it wasn't just medication that you can just get a couple pill bottles and then go travel to Europe or something like that. I'd have to get something called IVIG, which is just intravenous immunoglobulins. You go to like an infusion center and you have to do that every couple weeks and just get an IV in your arm. So like I said, like that would have made it so that I would not be able to live a very spontaneous life. So I would have to travel. Like if I were to ever travel or anything, I would just be like, all right, well, I have to be back in 2 weeks to get my treatment. And like I've gone to Ethiopia. I am planning on going on some other trips once the world gets back to semi-normality and we're able to travel and stuff. So yeah, just like I'm able to do what I want to do, and I'm not hindered by making sure that I'm at home to get my medication and stuff.
No, I think that's great. And something I've always talked about, whether it's on Instagram or on my YouTube channel or any of that stuff, is the importance of diet and lifestyle when you're trying to manage such a monstrous chronic condition, no matter what autoimmune disease it is. Diet and lifestyle truly have been a game changer for not only yourself, but many, many other people. It just happens to be veganism was your vehicle to getting to where you wanted to be. But I wanted to know, what exactly is the difference between being vegan versus vegetarian versus being like plant-based? Because I hear all of those terms a lot.
So I feel like a lot of people who say plant-based, those are, well, maybe some vegans won't agree with me, but I think that those are people who are vegan. But it's often thrown out as like an insult to people who say that they're vegan, and people don't think that they're like being vegan enough. And it's kind of like their ego is hurt by saying like, well, if that person's vegan and I'm also considered vegan, but they're not being vegan enough, then they have to be lower than me. So like, I don't personally like using, because I feel like it's kind of like a derogatory term to like that vegans will throw at each other. So like, I don't know. That's how I feel about that topic. But as far as like vegetarian, that's just like, you can still eat dairy, you can still eat eggs and stuff, but vegan is just like no animal products. And like some people will eat honey. I personally don't. But if somebody wants to eat honey, like there's bigger battles to fight than someone eats honey,
Yeah. I would like to think that coronavirus has put into perspective a lot of bigger fights in the world. That go beyond vegan and non-vegan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like when you don't have problems, often people will make up problems. Like if the world, like, because before this whole pandemic and everything, like the biggest thing people would usually complain about is like the world not being convenient. But now it's really inconvenient. So now there's like an actual problem.
So I'd like to ask you too, because you went into veganism not necessarily for the ethical reasons that some other people go into eating a vegan lifestyle for. I have some friends that, for purely ethical reasons, eat on a vegan diet, pretty much purely for that. And so for you, do you think that when someone out there is trying to make a decision on if they should be vegan or not, is that something that they should take into account? Or do you think like vegans take it too far in some aspects of it? Because like you said, it's hard to know what it's like without having gone through something like we've gone through chronic illness. So we felt like we had a mission more dire, perhaps.
Yeah, so I would say that it was easier for me to make the transition, because for me, the choice was, do I want to be on medication for the rest of my life, or do I want to eat plants for the rest of my life? I was like, I'll go with plants because this can be a lot cheaper because IVIG was like $8,000 per treatment. And I just all around feel better. Like I used to just get random headaches and now I don't get them. And there were just like a lot of little random things that I just don't have anymore from going vegan. So that's really changed and it's been really great. And as far as like the ethics, like I would definitely say that I am now an ethical vegan. The first like 6 months or so, I was just a health concern vegan. And then I watched like some documentaries and stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, I'd say I'm an ethical vegan now as well. But I didn't go into it with that, but now I'd say that's part of the reason why I stayed vegan. So like if I were to ever have like a flare up, I wouldn't be like, oh, this diet's not working. Like I would still want to do it because like I still believe that like no being needs to be killed just for me to eat. If I've gone 7 years without killing on something in order to eat, like I can probably go another 7 or 70, you know.
So I think a lot of people out there are just wondering, people that may know nothing about veganism other than like you don't eat meat. So I think a lot of people, that's like all they think of, oh, you don't eat meat. Like that's it. Where do you get the bulk of your protein? How do you combine different plant sources to get that protein as a complete protein for your body?
The interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't know is like the difference between complete and incomplete proteins. So complete proteins are just like all of the essential amino acids that you need in the exact proportion that you would need them. Incomplete proteins still have every single one of the essential amino acids that you need, but it's not in the exact order that you need them. Like you might need more phenylalanine, but not get it from oranges, but maybe you can get more of it from like chickpeas or something. And like, I don't know that to be a fact. I don't, like, as far as like the specific amino acids, I'm just like shouting them out. But like, so, you know, as long as you're eating a varied amount, like you're going to get enough amino acids. And for like the average person who's like not trying to build muscle, you don't really need that much protein. But for me, like I am trying to build muscle. So I'm consuming probably like 25% of my calories from protein. I typically eat like 150 to close, well, it's usually 150 or so, but up to 200 grams of protein per day. It's really not that difficult if you know what you're doing. Just like any bodybuilder who are like, if they're eating meat, like, or just on an omnivorous diet, like they have to eat a specific diet in order to reach their goals. The same thing with vegans.
And there's a lot of, I suppose, controversy around that because there's these myths out there with being vegan. And I'm not personally vegan myself. I may give it a kick someday in the future just to see if there's any improvement. I've cut back on certain things. I've implemented other things. I definitely eat like 100 times more plants than I've ever eaten in my life. And the amount of protein I eat has been quite reduced as far as like volume. I think people put a lot of importance on protein and muscle building, but you don't need as much as you think, like you just said, because if you're not becoming like a huge bodybuilder, you don't need to be consuming like the rock diet every day of your life. Do you think normal people, outside of people that just are like you and me with chronic illness, could benefit from taking a more vegan-esque diet lifestyle into their routine?
Yeah, so like I said, like there's just a lot of things that I used to think were normal that since I've gone vegan, I'm like, oh, so it's not normal to just get headaches, or like it's not normal to feel like there's a brick in your stomach after eating. Like I'll feel like that still if I eat like a really junk food vegan meal, like if I go out to eat and it's like, it's really good tasting, but it doesn't make me feel good afterwards. Whereas like if I eat a salad, like I'll feel full, but I won't feel like weighed down. Yeah, there's just a lot of little things. I think it affects a lot of people differently. Like I said, like I used to just randomly get headaches. So whatever ails you, like whatever sort of thing that you just like deal with day to day. I remember like the first couple months that I didn't get headaches, I was like, wow, it's like I got a headache just because I was like staring at a screen all day and like should have been sleeping, but I wasn't. So like I'll still get them, but like I can always trace it back to what it was. And I was just like thinking like, wow, this is so weird. I haven't had a headache in months.
You know what's funny about that? I think, and this goes back to also bio-individuality, because everybody's body works slightly different. You got different quirks, you have different genetics. So for me, a vegan diet may react differently than somebody else like yourself with a vegan diet. So I think also when people get on these kicks of like, this is the one diet, the only thing that'll ever work, and it's the perfect thing for everyone, I think they need to take a seat back and realize that everybody's a little bit different. What exactly will be the right proportionately for you won't be the same for me necessarily. I just think that's something that needs to be said just for everyone, that everybody's different, because everyone tries to, when you have a chronic illness, you're all looking for that silver bullet. And it's not always as simple as that for everybody. And I think that's just important. But there are also a lot of myths associated with being vegan. Some of them are crazy, and this goes both ways for people that are vegan and non-vegan, doing both sides. But one of them is that you're more likely to be vitamin and nutrient deficient on a vegan diet than otherwise. So would you like to squash that, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any vitamin or nutrient other than like B12 and vitamin D, which I supplement with those. But outside of that, I don't really see any sort of nutritional holes or anything. I mean, a lot of people worry about like calcium or iron, but like for a while, like when I first started eating more protein, I was logging what I was eating, and I would like pretty regularly get like 2 to 3 times the amount of daily value for iron, for calcium, for like pretty much everything. As long as you're actually eating healthy foods, then there's no problem. If you're eating junk foods, like whether vegan, whether you're not, like you're going to have some holes in your diet, you know? So it just depends on like how healthy you're going to be, because you can definitely be a junk food vegan.
So speaking about calcium and stuff like that, that was something that I was curious to know more about. What are some of your favorite sources for getting calcium? Because I noticed they're in like leafy greens and stuff like that, and that's great, but you really have to consume quite a bit to hit whatever the RDA of like 1,000 milligrams is or something like that. So could you give us some tips on that?
Yeah, so one like really great source, if you eat just like 1 block of tofu, which sometimes if I make a tofu scramble or something like that, or 1 block of tofu is like 150% of my daily value for calcium. And then like oranges have a little bit. So like a lot of little things add up. And then if I eat like tofu, like I said, soy milk I think has some too. So like soy is just like a good source of that. A little bit in leafy greens like you were saying. And yeah, just like one thing like you probably found too, like if you log any of your food, pretty much every plant food has just a little bit of every single thing. And like, whereas like, like oranges will have like a lot of vitamin C, and like Brazil nuts have a lot of selenium, and like tofu has a lot of calcium and a lot of iron. A lot of people when they first go vegan, they're just not eating enough food because they're used to their food, like say like this much food has like 500 calories, but as a vegan, this much food has 500 calories. So you have to eat a larger volume, and they're not used to that. So they think they're eating enough. So like a lot of people will message me and say like, hey, is there any like vitamin that you think I'm deficient in? And then I just say, you know what? I don't know for sure, so I have no idea exactly what your diet is, but check out Chronometer, type in everything you eat for the day. You're probably deficient in calories. And they're like, wow, it says I was eating about 1,000 calories less per day than I should. I was like, yeah, if you're not trying to lose weight, and even if you are trying to lose weight, 1,000 calorie deficit's like absurd. Like you're gonna be starving. Like people are saying they would get headaches and stuff. And then once they were like, oh, now that I know that I'm eating less, and they would start to eat more, they're like, oh wow, magically I feel better now.
I have an interesting question, because I have a friend that is he's an ex-vegan now, and now he's like very anti-vegan. So we always have interesting conversations, and I'm always kind of in between because I've never been vegan, but I'm not entirely against being vegan either. He always talks about the worry of things such as oxalates in food or lectins in plant-based foods, these so-called like plant toxins, anti-nutrient toxins. What do you know of that, or have any thoughts on those being issues?
So like to the best of my knowledge, phytates and like a lot of anti-nutrients and stuff like that that are in like beans and grains, most of them are really prevalent when they're uncooked. But I'm not eating uncooked beans and uncooked rice and stuff like that. So for the most part, it's like mostly gone by the time you cook them. And as far as oxalates, one of the Hemsworths, like the actor, he was vegan for a little bit, and he got a kidney stone because he was eating like 3 or 4 handfuls of spinach in his smoothies. Like, well, okay, well, don't do that. Like, don't go overboard with like, it's mostly from blending the spinach and stuff like that you will get like a high amount of oxalates. Although I blend spinach in smoothies, but I just grab like a small handful and put it in, because honestly, after you put in like too many handfuls of spinach, it just starts to taste gross. Also, I think it's true too when you deal with the oxalates and stuff like that. If you cook vegetables, sometimes it makes metals more bioavailable, but it also breaks down some of that stuff for you already, so you don't have to deal with it, which is kind of nice. Those are things that are always tossed around in like the carnivore community or the crazy stuff like that. And what's funny to me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this too, is I have another good friend with CIDP who found crazy results with carnivore diet. So what do you think, what do you make of that when you're kind of coming from the polar opposite area of that, and how you treat such a condition? I mean, if he found success, like I can't argue with success. Like if he's doing better because of that, then he's doing better because of that. I mean, like I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly what's going on. I guess the only thing that I would say is like, yes, he found success doing that, but could he find success with a vegan diet that also not only benefits him, but it benefits the planet, benefits the animals? Because then it's like benefiting more than just yourself.
This is true. They treat animals terribly in a lot of senses. When you buy commercial meat, commercial eggs, stuff like that, the way they're treated in cages and feedlots and all this stuff is pretty bad. And it actually ends up being worse for you because of the way they're treated. The nutritional value is depleted a ton. It's insane. That and other chemicals and stuff like that, antibiotics and stuff, all of those things can get into the meat. What are your thoughts on eating a purely grass-fed, grass-finished diet? Is that still unethical if you're going for ethical veganism, or is that kind of like getting closer to being all right?
I don't think that there is a way to ethically kill someone that doesn't want to be killed. Like if you had a kid and you were like treating them like really nicely and like you fed them like the healthiest diet and stuff like that, but by the time they're 7 years old, you decided to kill them. But you did it in a way that they didn't even know it was coming. Like you'd still go to prison. You know, it's still an awful thing to do. Yeah, you know, it's still an awful thing to do. And the way I see it is like, if you can achieve the same thing potentially and not have to do that, then why not?
I definitely appreciate that perspective on things. It definitely makes you think. And if you have any comments on that, put them in the comments down below. And I'm sure people will have thoughts on that. I think it's very interesting because I personally don't have a problem with it, because I look at it more as a primal view of how humanity has evolved. And I don't want to get into this debate of evolution and then like creationism and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I look at it like we're born with incisors. We're meant to eat meat. I don't personally eat, honestly, that much meat. I eat way less meat than I've ever eaten my entire life, which I think is a step forward, and I actually feel better. Veganism, if you're suffering from a autoimmune disease, is something to look at, or something of that nature, something that's more plant-based in certain areas. I think people can benefit from, just because science tends to lean that way as well. And so I really appreciate you taking this kind of short time to kind of break that down. I have one maybe I don't have a final question. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was it. I had it on my mind and it was gone. Yeah. But everything that you need to know about No Egg Craig, love him. He has great vegan like cooking videos, and he's a hilarious cat on his YouTube channel. All of that stuff is in the description down below. Craig, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
That. This is great. If you enjoyed this video, please slap a like on it. It really helps me out. Go check out No Egg Craig. He's a great guy. And I'll see you in the next video.